Welcome back, Irish fans, to Breaking Out Braves Boys podcast today. UNC, Notre Dame, after one of the best games of the year, probably the best moment of the year. Our guest son hit probably the biggest shot for Notre Dame in a long time, maybe since the last buzzer beater against UNC. Me and Jake, glad to welcome on Mr. Langston Wertz to preview UNC and Notre Dame tonight and talk about last night. So thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so I guess to start out, you knew we were going to ask this. Can you take us through last night and kind of what that was like for you? You guys, Trey, and what was your reaction?
I was watching the game. I was in Greensboro. I was watching the game in the stands, and it didn't look good for us for a while. We couldn't really do anything, and then we made a run. I said, "Oh, we're back in the game," and then they pushed it out again. So I started thinking, well, maybe it's not our night, and then they, Prentice just started going nuts when they called big shots. Cormac got some great stops, and Prentice hit a three, I think, and finally gave us the lead, or maybe tied it up. And I was like, man, we got a chance. And then it comes down to the final play, and we get a shot to take the lead at the end, and we miss it, and then they come down. And I'm telling my wife, Whitney, I said, they're going to hold for the last shot. We just got to try to play for overtime. And they went a little fast. And Cormac made a great play on Davian Williamson, who had just been cooking us all night long. They just didn't miss, it seemed like. I don't know what the stats were, but looking at it live, I just kept saying to my wife, they just don't miss. And, we were actually being responsible in the zone. We were talking in the zone, which is something I hadn't seen, and because I could hear them. And I remember against, I think it was Syracuse, I couldn't hear him talking in the zone. The Syracuse guys were just cutting in our zones. So Coach Brady has done a good job making that adjustment. But, Cormac made a great play. He's dribbling down the court. And, I'm thinking about the Carolina game, but dribble down the court with a chance to win. And, he stops and he pitches it back to Trey. And I see Trey pull up, and I've seen him hit those kinds of shots over and over. And I mean, literally more than 10 that I've seen him make, little league all the way up to college, game-winning type shots, and he let it go. And when I knew it was good was when he took his hand back like that. I said, it's good. Because normally if he holds it, he's kind of not sure. But when he took it away and started running, I said, that's good. And it went in, and then, time just slowed down after that. I just kind of put my hands up in there. I didn't scream. I didn't say anything. I just put my hands up in there, and I turned around, and I was like, wow, he did it, Trey moment. That's what we used to call them, Trey moments. I said, man, the Trey moment. So, yeah.
For sure. That was one of the craziest games for us, too. I think at a point we all kind of thought this was it. This is the season. And I guess Trey and Cormac really led that comeback, and Prentice, too. You talked about the buzzer beaters that Trey's hit over the years, and you talked about in the spring how he was clutch. We now believe you. But what do you think the best buzzer beater was that you've seen? Could be elementary school, could be last night.
The best buzzer beater I've ever seen Trey make, man, he was in – this is like biddy – I call it biddy ball, B-I-D-D-Y, biddy ball. He was in 5th grade, I think, and we were playing a 6th grade team. And the coach's 6th grade team is now one of his trainers in the summer. It is his trainer in the summer. And he took about 3 steps in from half court, got the same side of the court, all bottom, same thing. He shot it, pulled his hand back, and took off running before it went in. And it reminded me a lot of that shot. He had a shot just like that in 17U Nationals. He was playing for Team Loaded, which is on the Adidas circuit, the Adidas Gauntlet. And they were playing Charles Bassey's team from Texas in the Adidas Finals. And he stole the pass. They were down 2. He stole the pass, went up the court. He bumped into the ref on the way, and he got to about the exact same spot, shot it, and it kind of back rimmed. And I asked him this morning, I said, that was the same shot you missed against Charles Bassey's team. And he laughed. He said, yeah, this was a cleaner look. So I've seen him make shots like that, but to make one in the ACC tournament, man, the first time ever playing in that Greensboro building. He's a North Carolina kid. We call North Carolina the Hoop State. So you got a Hoop State kid making the shot in the biggest tournament in the world. And you can't beat that, man. And Notre Dame and Coach Brady have done a great job just believing in Trey, recruiting, and it's just fun.
Did you think that shot was going in when it happened?
I just saw him shoot it, and like I said, it looked good. His feet were set. You kind of pity-patted into it. I've seen him shoot enough to know when he's feeling good and comfortable with it. And when he pulled his hand back on his follow-through, that's when I knew it was good. When he took it, it looked good, but when he pulled his hand back, I said, man, that's probably going in, because I know his reactions to shots. I know how he feels about him. He's such a good shooter. And I don't know if he's actually shown that a whole lot this year, but he's such a good shooter. And
I think he has. He's 42% from three-point range, which is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't think Trey was showing that he was shooting well. I mean, that was kind of – I think he is shooting well. I agree with Jake. But how do you think this season has gone overall for him? It's a really weird start, but he has had some nice stretches. He had the injury, which kind of plagued him for a little bit more than I think people realized. And he had some rough stretches also, but last night was a nice turning point for him, and he had some good games prior to that in the last couple of weeks. How do you think this season has gone for him in general?
I think it's been a pretty good season for him. It's probably not where he wanted it to be. Trey just has such high expectations for himself. I think he's played more like what I would expect him to play in some of the games. And I think some of the games I don't think he's been aggressive as he should. I think he's still trying to figure out his way and fit in and understand the game. And I think, in his mind, you have to remember, he just thought I'm sitting out for a year. And that's what he thought he was doing. And it took a lot for us to get him to that point. But he really thought he was going to sit out. And then all of a sudden, he gets a chance to play, and then he gets hurt. He steps on J. Huff's foot, another North Carolina kid, and turns his ankle. And then he hurt the back of his neck when he fell against, who was that? Syracuse. I don't know who it was. He fell down and hurt the back of his neck. And that's still been bothering him. So, he's not 100%. But I think he I don't know if he's walking around kind of real stiff right now. But I think a lot of those guys, hurting. I mean, Cormac last night coming off the deck, man, I don't know what was wrong with him. His hip, his back, I don't know what it was. But he couldn't move. And I was like, oh, my God, that's bad. And then he comes back and plays. And, he's been down like that a couple of times. Nate went down the same game that Trey did with an ugly fall. I mean, those guys have really fought through a lot. I know the results aren't what they want, but they have a lot of potential. I really think this is going to be a tournament team next year with the guys coming back. And Prentice has had a great year. Prentice and Nate making all ACC. And, I think the guys are going to learn to play together because you got two important pieces in Trey and Cormac that really didn't have a lot of chance to mesh, particularly Trey with the team. So this summer, they'll have a whole summer to work out and get to know each other. And I think next year is going to be a great year. And I think Trey will definitely be better for you guys next year than he was this year.
That's the question. It kind of pertains to tonight, but it's kind of overall. So you're from my understanding is you're from North Carolina. You're a UNC fan. How does that go with having a son that's in conference? Are you a fan of both? I'm putting you on the spot, kind of.
No, I mean, I grew up a North Carolina fan. I went to Chapel Hill. I graduated from Chapel Hill. Trey grew up a North Carolina fan, probably because of me, because the Tar Heels were always on television. He had Carolina bedspread and Carolina curtains, and when he was born, he put a Carolina hat on his head. I mean, I'm a Carolina guy. But when he was, Carolina recruited him very briefly during high school. They offered his teammate Devon Dotson, who's with the Bulls now. So we got to know the Carolina staff well. Trey used to go to Sean May's basketball camp. Sean Mays is now an assistant coach there. When he was a kid at Providence State, the high school he went to in Charlotte. So there was always a connection there. When Trey decided to transfer from Santa Clara, Carolina, a lot more seriously recruited him this time. But he just, he really felt, as I told you guys before, that Notre Dame was the best fit for him. He did a spreadsheet and he listed out the pros and cons of each one. And I was walking around with my Carolina shirt on every day, trying to turn him. But he, I did not try to influence him. I wanted him to make his own decision. And he made that sheet, and Notre Dame was near the top of it. When he showed it to me, I said, well, man, it's your choice, but it looks pretty obvious to me. And I got to tell you guys, Ryan Humphrey is the most amazing coach I've dealt with. I've dealt with a lot, both professionally and in Trey's recruitment. I mean, he got recruited by 60-some schools, offered by 60-some schools his first time, and second time, and 20-something, 30-something schools the first time. So I've dealt with a lot of coaches, and Ryan Humphrey is definitely at the top or very near the top of the list of coaches we've dealt with. And he was incredible during the recruiting process. Coach Bray is incredible. He's the ultimate politician. I don't think Trey could be in better hands with the guys in Notre Dame. So I'm really happy about that. Tonight's game, I got to pull for Notre Dame. My son plays for Notre Dame. I haven't watched very many Carolina games this year. So I'm pulling for Notre Dame, and that's the team. That's where Trey goes. I got on my green.
Yep, for sure. Makes sense about Humphrey. Glad to hear that from somebody who kind of went through the other side of things with him. Bray talked about how he was a head coaching candidate. I've been trying to tell Jake about this for for months, and you just helped my argument out a lot. So
No, Humphrey's going to stand up one day. I tell him all the time he's going to be standing one day. He's really, really good, and he relates to the kids well, and I think that's important. But I think Coach Bray is a special coach. I mean, like I said, I deal with a lot of coaches. He just seems to kind of grasp the moment and understand how kids are feeling and relates to them, and he has a way of from what I can tell in the big pressure moments, depressurizing the moments for the kids. And like I said, I know this season hasn't gone the way they wanted to, but the fact they've been able to win at Kentucky, win at Duke, that's pretty special in any type of season you play. And I think these guys coming back next year, having been through the COVID and all the close calls, the blown leads, I don't think you're going to see them blow a lead next year like they did this year. I think they'll learn from that. And if you take, they're 4 or 5 games away, guys. Got games they should have won, and probably going to the tournament.
For sure. I like that you talk about Coach Bray like that too. Loosest coach in America. And
oh, absolutely. Wore shorts to Chapel Hill. I was laughing. We went to the first game in Chapel Hill. My man comes in with shorts on. I was laughing.
Icon. But you talked about how you're going to UNC Notre Dame tonight, and you were at Wake last night.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were some issues with the Wake fans last night, but normally Greensboro, I think, as you know, is normally like a home game for UNC.
Absolutely.
How do you think going to the game last night, how do you think the atmosphere is going to be tonight? Do you think it's going to be somewhat like it normally is, or do you think it's going to be pretty new?
No, they can only allow like 30% of the venue in there. So I don't know, it's 4,000 or 5,000, but it'll be 95% Chapel Hill, and probably some Duke fans in there too because they played before. But it's going to be heavy Chapel Hill, and excuse me. Last night was surprisingly loud for a few fans that were, and it was definitely a Wake crowd last night. They had their band, and it was definitely a Wake feeling, and the Wake crowd was letting our guys have it all game, and I think after the game, the celebration just kind of ended up in front of where they were. So there was a little verbal back and forth, but my kids doing what kids do. I don't really make too much of it, but tonight, anytime Carolina plays in North Carolina, it's a home game for North Carolina. Absolutely.
So about North Carolina, what do you make of their season and how they've rebounded from last year and how they can grow even more? What kind of team they are?
Well, they have the best interior guys in the country. I mean, Walker Kessler is amazing. He comes off the bench. I mean, he'd start for anybody. And the key with North Carolina is just the guard play. If the guards play well, they can make a run in the tournament. I mean, because nobody can deal with the interior guys. If they make shots and they put Corin Walton, I may have his name wrong, but Walton comes in the game 24, who can hit shots now. They're playing him a lot more, the freshman. And, if he's making shots, they can beat anybody. I mean, they're so big in the inside. It's just so hard to deal with them because, you just run out of bodies and they just keep bringing in fresh ones. And then they got a guy like Leaky Black, 6'8", 6'9", that can, play 1 through 4. I mean, he's just so versatile and he can guard you. And they just have a lot of answers to your questions.
For sure. I mean, that's what makes them so scary. If they can be consistent, they're one of the best teams in the league, and they could maybe even make a deep run in this tournament. Well,
I think they can definitely be a second week team if they get in. And the guards are playing well. That's just the key. I mean, the thing that Notre Dame, the reason why Notre Dame matches up well against Carolina is because Carolina doesn't guard a 3-point line well, and Notre Dame shoots it well. So if Notre Dame shoots the ball well tonight, they have a chance. If they don't shoot well, they're going to struggle because they're not going to get second shots. So they got to make 10, 12, 14 3-point shots, I would say, to stay in there. And they're certainly capable of doing that. And as we saw the first game, they had a shot to beat them in Chapel Hill. That was no fans, but had a shot to beat them in Chapel Hill. And, they could definitely, if they can stay hot like last night, they have a shot at it again. But they got to play defense as they did in the last 3 or 4 minutes, not the first 37 minutes last night.
My next question was actually, what do you think Notre Dame has to do to beat them? So you really, really knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone there. I think my last thing and Jake's last thing for you, before you head out, is Notre Dame winning by 100 or more than 100 tonight?
By 100 or more than 100?
Yeah, what's the prediction?
Let's go wild. Let's say 100. Let's go wild.
For sure. I'm definitely accurate, definitely unbiased from all 3 of us.
Yeah, very unbiased. Very unbiased. But I think I think the Notre Dame season, I think last night, no matter what happens, is going to definitely help for next year. And just happy for the guys. I know they've been through a lot. And just happy to see them get a win. Happy for my kid. Happy for Prentice, all those guys, Cormac. And, I just wish them the best. They're good kids. I wish them the best.
For sure. Jake, any closing thoughts before we hop off?
Just like to thank him for coming on with us. It's a great pleasure.
Anytime. Give me a call.
For sure. Short notice, but he pulled through, came on, helped us preview UNC and take us through one of the best Notre Dame games of the year. So thank you for coming on. Go Irish and enjoy the game tonight.
All right, fellas. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. All right, so now that Jake and I have talked to Langston Wertz about last night, kind of recapping a crazy game, and we talked about UNC a little bit. I'm going to go more in depth on UNC, kind of preview it, give an actual prediction later. But to start, going to give my keys. One, I think we've all seen this coming when we saw UNC could be a potential opponent, rebound. Notre Dame got killed on the boards against UNC the first time with that big four, Sharp, Brooks, Kessler, and Baycott. I mean, Notre Dame doesn't really have an answer for them. Like Mr. Wertz said, I mean, they might be the best front court in America, and I don't think there's a whole lot that you could argue to be besides them. Notre Dame is going to have a really tough time, and I think maybe every team in the ACC is going to have a really tough time rebounding with them and stopping them in the post. Even guys like Kessler can kind of stretch the floor, which can also be an issue. Going to need Laz, Zona, and Durham tonight, maybe just Laz and Durham and maybe Jogo to get on the boards. And if they can't find an answer for UNC getting second chance points with those four big guys, they're in trouble. And I don't think that's a far off possibility that happens. So that's my number one key. If Notre Dame can't do that, it's going to be really hard to see them winning this game. The second one's not as important, but still semi-important. Slow them down in transition. Caleb loves getting on the break, no pun intended. But he's not great running through their sets, a little turnover prone, more so early in the year. But if you let UNC get out and run, then you're in trouble. I mean, that's when you know they're hitting on all cylinders, when they can get out, get fast break dunks, which can kind of flip the momentum, hit threes in transition. That's a really good part of their team, and something that if you can slow down, you're going to really limit them offensively. They're going to have to take longer possessions with Baycott, Brooks, Sharp, Kessler in the post, which I'm not saying Notre Dame can do a great job on, but it's better than letting them get out and run. So you got to stop the ball as soon as a guy like Love or Walton or Davis gets it. That's huge. Maybe not as big as the rebounding thing, but still big. And then 3, get good looks and hit them. Like Mr. Wertz said, again, they're probably going to have to hit double-digit threes, which is something Bray's really touched on over the years with teams like this who don't play much defense. Last night didn't play great defense either, but they got to hit those open looks, and I think they're going to be able to create space on a guy like Kerwin Walton or Playtech, but you're going to have to really take advantage of getting open looks, and hitting threes is what's going to keep you in this game. So that's my third key matchup to watch. I think we all kind of know from what I was saying earlier, Baycott, Brooks, Sharp, Kessler, four of the best big men in the ACC all on the same team versus Laz, Durham, Jogo, and then Zona. I'll touch more on Zona in a second, but that's going to be what's going to determine if UNC runs them out of the gym or not. Is if UNC is getting second chance points and they're bruising down low, it's going to be a really long night for Notre Dame. That's why I think Zona could be a factor, because he can really prevent some of the board issues that Notre Dame's had in the past, and he won't get back down as easily as a guy like Jogo. So I think we could really see him get some playing time, but this is not a matchup I love at all. I like how Notre Dame matches up with the guards way more than I like the bigs. I actually kind of like how they match up guard-wise, but big-wise, I don't think any team matches up well with UNC, especially not Notre Dame, who's had rebounding issues all year, had rebounding issues last night with Isaiah Mucius and a team with no backup big man. So that is going to be a matchup that really determines this game. I think Notre Dame, if they lose that matchup by – like if UNC doesn't dominate that matchup, Notre Dame could still win, even if UNC wins that matchup. But other than that, it's going to be really, really difficult. Things to watch for: Zona, if he gets in the game. Morgan and Zona got some playing time, even Sanders against UNC the first time. And they all provided some value. Morgan ran the offense really well. Zona got on the boards. I don't think he even scored in that game, but he might have been the best blue team player in that game. So he could really have a nice impact against a guy like Garrison Brooks, who's not super athletic. We all know that's Zona's downfall. It's his athleticism. And if he can slow down a guy like Brooks or maybe even Walker Kessler, then if he can spot you a few minutes doing that, then you're in way better shape. And Laz and Durham have had foul issues against really good big men like this, and that could prevent it. 2, I think you need to watch for Cormac Ryan's health a lot. He's probably going to play, but, I mean, man, he was not even close to 100% towards the end of the game. You could see Wertz, I guess, isn't 100% either with that neck injury, but Cormac Ryan seems like he's in rough shape health-wise. He's a grinder, so he's going to give it a go. Got to give him a lot of credit for last night, but this is something that's really going to kill Notre Dame if he can't be as effective as he was, and Wertz can't step into that role, or Goodwin can't step into that role. This is huge that Cormac Ryan can be healthy. Even if he isn't healthy, he's just got to – if he can hit a few shots, kind of shift the momentum, play decent defense, I think you'll see really early how healthy he is. And if he's not, then Notre Dame is in rough shape. And then 3, last thing to watch for is how Notre Dame comes out. They could come out, play really hard because of last night, or they could come out and have a really disappointing game. You never really know with this team. So, I mean, look at the intensity that they come out with. They're not going to win with the performance they had last night, even though guys like Hub and Ryan really picked it up down the stretch, and Wertz too. Wertz had a really nice game besides the 4 fouls. But that's all I have to watch for. My leading scorer, I'm going to pick Laz. I know UNC has some guys who can really move, big men, and guys who can get out and contest shots, but Laz had a really nice game against them last time, and I'm picking him to do it again. I mean, I don't love Leaky Black and Caleb Love guarding 2 of your best players, especially if Cormac's not healthy. Then you can put less of a defensive emphasis on him. But Laz, I like how he matches up, and he might be their only way to score for a little bit. So he's really going to have to pick it up from last night. He's got to hunt his shot more, and he's got to hit him. So that's something huge for Laz that he picks it up. And then my prediction, going to go UNC by 5. I would love to be wrong. I was wrong about FSU. I picked FSU by 10. So hopefully I'm wrong here, but I just don't love how Notre Dame – I don't love what Notre Dame has to combat Baycott, Brooks, Sharp, and Kessler with. So I'm going to go UNC by 5. That's all I have. Hopefully this isn't the last game preview of the season. I also have a guy lined up for VT tomorrow if they do end up playing, but we'll see. Late o'clock, 9 game. Everybody enjoy it. This might be the last time we see this team play all year. So thank you guys for watching. Go Irish, and be sure to subscribe. Talk to you guys later. Peace.